The parallel markets 1637 and now. Haarlem, Holland. Winter 1636. A candlelit tavern reeks of stale ale and desperation. A merchant hunches over a table, his quill scratching violently against parchment. He is buying a future, a promise, a fortune. Cut to Columbus, Ohio, 2025. 2:03 a.m. A teenager lies in the dark, bathed in the sickly blue radiation of a 6-inch screen. His thumb flicks upward, again and again. The sound is different here, not the scratch of a quill, but the haptic click of an iPhone. A subtle vibration that registers in the brainstem, not the ear. The merchant is trading tulips. The teenager is trading seconds, but make no mistake, they are both trading something they do not understand. And both are standing on the precipice of a collapse they cannot see. We like to laugh at the Dutch. We look back at the winter of 1637 with mocking arrogance. How could they? How could rational men trade their family estates, their livestock, their life savings for a single flower bulb? Specifically, the Admirael van der Eyck, a striped, diseased, botanical anomaly that, for a brief moment in history, was worth more than a skilled worker could earn in 20 years. The records tell us that in those final feverish weeks, a single bulb would change hands 10 times a day. 10 times. The price inflating with every signature detached from reality, floating on an ocean of liquidity that didn't actually exist. It was a mass psychosis, a belief that the line on the chart would go up forever because it always had. And then came the 3rd of February 1637. It didn't end with a bang. It ended with a buyer who simply didn't show up. An auction in Haarlem went silent. Panic didn't spread at the speed of light like it does today. It spread at the speed of a horse galloping to Amsterdam. But the result was the same. Prices collapsed 90% in days. The liquidity evaporated. The contracts were worthless paper. The wealth was a hallucination. You think you are different. You think because you don't own tulip futures, you are safe. You are wrong. In 1971, an economist named Herbert Simon saw the future. He didn't look at oil or gold or wheat. He looked at the primitive computers of his day and realized a terrifying truth. He wrote, "In an information-rich world, the wealth of information means a dearth of something else, a scarcity of whatever it is that information consumes." And what does information consume? It consumes your attention. Simon warned us that a wealth of information creates a poverty of attention. 50 years later, we are living in the ruins of that prophecy. We have maximized the information. We have infinite content, and as a result, our attention is bankrupt. Look at the data from 2025. It is a crime scene. The average member of Generation Z now spends upwards of 9 hours a day staring at screens. Over 6.5 of those hours are spent specifically on mobile devices. That is not a hobby. That is not entertainment. That is a full-time job where the worker pays the employer. Year over year, the time spent rotting in the digital void ticks up 14%, 15%. We are seeing engagement metrics that would make a drug dealer blush. 17% of the global population now meets the clinical criteria for social media addiction. This is not an accident. It is an extraction. The engineers in Silicon Valley read the same psychology textbooks as the casino owners in Las Vegas. They know about variable reward schedules. They know that if you give a rat a pellet every time it presses a lever, the rat eventually gets bored. But if you give the rat a pellet, sometimes rarely, unpredictably, the rat will press that lever until it starves to death. That is your phone. It is a slot machine in your pocket. The pull to refresh mechanic, that is the lever. The notification badge, that is the bell. We are not the customers in this transaction. We are the raw material. In 1637, the Dutch mined the soil for bulbs. In 2025, corporations mine your nervous system for dopamine. They are strip mining the human capacity for focus, leaving behind a scarred landscape of anxiety and fragmentation. The Dutch collapse happened because they mistook scarcity for value. They thought the tulip was rare, so they bid it up. Today, we make the inverse mistake. We think our attention is infinite, so we give it away for free. But attention is the most finite resource you have. You cannot print more of it. You cannot borrow it. Once you spend a second on a dance video, it is gone forever. The tulip market crashed when the buyers ran out of money. The attention economy will crash when the neurological system runs out of resilience. We are borrowing against our own biology. We are trading futures on our mental health, leveraging our sanity for one more hit of engagement. The silence that fell over the tavern in Harlem is coming for us. But this time, it won't be an empty auction house. It will be a distinct, terrifying silence at the dinner table. A silence where everyone is present, but no one is there. The crash has already begun. You just haven't looked up from your screen long enough to see it. That silence at the dinner table isn't peaceful. It's the sound of a resource being extracted. You might think you are simply distracted. You aren't. You are being mined. In 1637, the Dutch traded fragile bulbs of tulips. Today, the trade is in something far more finite and far more lethal to lose. Neural activity, specifically the electrical firing of your frontoparietal network. The market isn't down the street anymore. It is happening inside the gray matter of your cranium, 24 hours a day. Let's look at the decay rate. It is staggering. In 2004, the average human time on a single screen before switching focus was 150 seconds, 2.5 minutes of coherent thought. That was the baseline. By 2023, that number had collapsed to 47 seconds. 47 seconds. And now, the general sustained attention span has drifted down to 8 seconds. That is 1 second less than a goldfish. We have biologically devolved below the level of a decorative carp in a bowl. But the fish isn't carrying a supercomputer designed to exploit its dopamine receptors. You are. This didn't happen by accident. It was engineered. If you walk into a casino, you see the flashing lights of slot machines. You pull the lever. Sometimes you win, mostly you lose. But the uncertainty of the win is what releases the dopamine. It is called a variable reward schedule. It was discovered by B.F. Skinner in the 1950s when he trained rats to press levers for food. Silicon Valley took Skinner's rat cage and put it in your pocket. Every time you pull down to refresh your feed, you are pulling that slot machine lever. Will it be a like, a comment, a rage-inducing headline? You don't know. And that split second of anticipation triggers the ventral tegmental area of your brain to flood your system with dopamine. The quantity is not trivial. It mimics the neural pathways activated by cocaine. But unlike a drug, you cannot metabolize this away. You are dosing yourself hundreds of times a day. The result is a chronic dopamine deficit state. Your brain now perceives a lack of stimulation as pain. Silence becomes unbearable. Boredom feels like withdrawal. So you scroll, and while you scroll, the machinery of your mind is grinding gears. The cognitive load of constant multitasking activates over 20 different brain networks simultaneously. Your cholinergic neurons are firing until they are depleted. They simply cannot regenerate the neurotransmitters fast enough to keep up with the demand. This is frontoparietal exhaustion. Imagine a car engine redlining in neutral for 16 hours a day. That is your brain on the modern internet. You feel tired, but you haven't moved. You feel anxious, but you are safe in your bed. You feel empty because the very mechanism required to feel satisfaction has been burned out by cheap digital friction. This is the heist. They aren't just selling your data. They are strip mining your ability to process reality. Every second you stare at that black mirror is a second of focus you will never get back. It is a non-renewable biological asset, and it is being siphoned off to power the valuation of ad tech companies. We worry about the economy collapsing, We worry about the supply chain breaking, but the first supply chain to break wasn't the one moving shipping containers across the ocean. It was the one moving thoughts across your synapses. The extraction is nearly complete. The mine is running dry. And when the human mind can no longer focus long enough to solve the problems it created, the real crash begins. The market cap of attention is high, but the liquidity is gone. You want to look away. You physically can't. And that is exactly how they designed it. And that brings us to the price tag. They didn't hack your dopamine receptors for sport. They did it because your paralysis is a violently profitable asset class. Let's strip away the sleek user interfaces and look at the ledger. In the third quarter of 2025, Meta reported earnings that would make a mid-sized nation-state jealous, $51.2 billion in revenue. But the aggregate number hides the insult. You need to see the unit price, $14.46. That is what you were worth to them over 3 months. Break it down further. The average user is now locked in for over 6 hours a day across the digital ecosystem. Do the math. It works out to approximately 25 cents per hour. 25 cents. That is the market valuation of your consciousness. You are trading the finite moments of your life, your ability to focus on your children, your capacity to learn a new skill, your mental peace for a rate that is literally fractions of a penny per minute. It is the most lopsided trade in human history. And you aren't the customer. You know this. But you haven't internalized what it means to be the product. Shoshana Zuboff, the scholar who dissected this machinery, didn't call it marketing. She called it instrumentarian power. She correctly identified that under this regime, human experience is unilaterally claimed as free raw material. Think about that phrase, free raw material, like timber in a forest, like coal in the ground. You are an extraction site, and the mining operation is booming. In 2025, the global advertising market, the attention market, didn't just grow, it devoured the economy. It crossed $1.19 trillion. By 2026, it is projected to hit $1.3 trillion. To put that into perspective, the industry focused on distracting you is now larger than the GDP of most countries on Earth. Contrast the balance sheet. On the left side, record-breaking revenues. TikTok users averaging 34 hours a month, an entire work week donated to the algorithm. On the right side, the biological cost. Cognitive overload, emotional desensitization, an attention span that has statistically degraded to 8 seconds, less than that of a goldfish. We are seeing a mass-scale neurological rewrite. This is the silent auction. It happens every time you unlock your phone. A microsecond bidding war between algorithms to see who can extract that next 25 cents of value from your optic nerve. The volatility is zero. The yield is guaranteed because the house knows something you don't. They know the supply of human attention is fixed, but the demand is infinite. They have bet the entire global economy on the premise that you will never look up again. And they looked at the charts. They saw the line going up and assumed it would go up forever. But lines on a chart don't account for biology. They assumed the human mind was an infinite well, a bottomless pit of engagement they could drill into without consequence. They were wrong. The previous chapter showed the dollar value of the attention economy hitting over $1 trillion, a staggering sum. But here is the fatal flaw that connects us directly back to the freezing winter of 1637. Markets saturate. Every gold mine eventually yields only dirt. Every oil field eventually runs dry. And the mine inside your skull is no different. Let's look at the ledger for 2026. The numbers aren't just slowing down, they are screaming. 5.66 billion users. That is 69% of the entire human population. Look at that number closely. It means there is no one left to extract. The digital land grab is over. They have captured nearly every pair of eyes sitting on the surface of the earth. For 2 decades, the valuation of these companies was built on a single word: growth. But when you reach 69% of the species, growth stops. The only way to increase revenue now is to squeeze the existing users harder, to wring more hours out of a day that only has 24. And this is where the machinery breaks. Because the users are breaking, we are seeing the biological limit of the attention economy. It's not a theory, it's showing up in the clinical data. Look at Generation Z, the first generation to be essentially born inside the mind. They are spending upwards of 10 hours a week on social platforms, often much more. And the correlation is undeniable. We measure anxiety using the GAD-7 scale. It's a clinical diagnostic tool. A score of 5 is mild, 10 is moderate. We are seeing average scores climbing toward levels of clinical crisis, specifically correlating with high screen time. We are seeing scores hitting 8.17 and climbing. This isn't just stress. This is the nervous system sounding an alarm. It is the biological equivalent of a structural stress fracture. The brain is vibrating with cortisol. It is overheating. And for the first time in history, the cattle are trying to leave the pen. The tech giants bet on addiction. They bet that you couldn't stop scrolling even if you wanted to. But pain is a powerful motivator. 74% of Gen Z now say they actively want to reduce their screen time. But wanting to quit is one thing. Actually walking away is another. Here is the statistic that should terrify every board member at Meta and ByteDance. 63% of Gen Z are now intentionally disconnecting. They are engaging in digital detoxing. They are buying dumb phones. They are physically removing themselves from the algorithm. This is the highest rate of disconnection we have ever seen in any generation. Think about what that means for the business model. The algorithm relies on a predictable input of data to sell ads. But the supply of that data is becoming volatile. It is shrinking. Users are waking up. They are realizing that the silence at the dinner table isn't normal. They are realizing the buzzing in their pocket is a shackle. And now, we return to Harlem. February 1637. The day the tulip mania died, it didn't happen with an explosion. It happened with a no-show. It happened because a handful of buyers decided the price was too high, and they simply didn't go to the auction. Fast forward to 2026, we are approaching the moment of the empty room. Facebook and Instagram are plateauing. TikTok is fighting for scraps, adding only 300 million users, a mere 7.5% growth in a world that demands exponential returns. They call it peak attention. It is the moment when the last second of free time has been monetized and the user collapses under the weight of it. The engagement metrics are high, but they are hollow. It is the frantic scrolling of a population looking for an exit. The defaults are beginning. Not debt defaults, not mortgage defaults, cognitive defaults. The human brain is declaring bankruptcy. It cannot pay the attention debt it owes to Silicon Valley. And when the user walks away, the trillion-dollar valuations act just like those tulip bulbs. They rot. You can feel it, can't you? The fatigue, the desire to just throw the phone into the ocean. That feeling isn't unique to you. It is systemic, it is global, and it is the sound of the bubble bursting. 69% of the human population is currently captured in the feedback loop. But here is the statistic that keeps the board of directors awake at night. 74% of the youngest users want out. In February 1637, the tulip market collapsed in a single week. Prices plummeted, fortunes dissolved, and silence returned to the auction houses. It was violent, it was fast, it was merciful. This collapse is different. We aren't seeing a sudden drop in stock prices. We are seeing a slow, agonizing rot of the underlying asset. The infrastructure of extraction is too embedded to fail overnight. These platforms aren't just markets anymore. They are the utilities of modern existence. You can't turn off the water just because the pipes are lead. But the data from 2025 is already showing the cracks in the foundation. Look at the ledger. For the first time in history, global display advertising, the very lifeblood of the open internet, is contracting. The charts show a decline, not because the algorithms failed, but because the human eye has evolved. Banner blindness is no longer a marketing term. It is a biological callus, a defense mechanism. The ads are loading, but nobody is seeing them. The click-through rates are trending towards zero, and the revolt isn't theoretical, it's physical. While Silicon Valley pours billions into the metaverse and AI integration, the street-level reality is moving in the exact opposite direction. Sales of dumb phones, bricks of plastic with no apps, no feeds, and no dopamine surged by over 21% in the last year alone. Search interest for these devices has tripled. Think about what that means. In an economy built on addiction, the addicts are cutting their own supply. They are paying premium prices for the privilege of silence. They are buying their minds back. This is the poverty of attention that Herbert Simon predicted all the way back in 1971. He warned us. He told us that a wealth of information would create a poverty of attention. We built systems designed to produce more noise than the human species could possibly absorb, and we drowned. So, do not wait for the opening bell to ring on the crash. The 1,637 crash left people holding worthless contracts. The 2025 crash leaves us holding worthless minds. The system hasn't ended. The servers are still humming, the notifications are still buzzing, and the stock valuations are still defying gravity. But the resource required to sustain them, your focus has run dry. We are entering the phase of the zombie market. The lights are on, the casino is open, but the players have all gone home. Reclaiming your attention isn't a lifestyle choice anymore. It is the only survival strategy left in a bankrupt world.